Welcome to the only small business podcast you'll ever need.
We go behind the scenes with business owners and marketing experts for success stories, epic failures, and creative ideas you can use.
From Wix.com, this is Who,
What,
Wix.
Hey all, welcome to another episode of Who, What, Wix. Justin and I today are enjoying a nice cold beer. Cheers!
Benjamin Franklin, my friends, said beer is proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy. If that's the case, then I think beer festivals are proof that man knows how to make the most of God's gift. You like what I did there?
Love it.
Beer festivals have taken off around the world in the past few years. And just to get everybody in the mood, can we get that bottle opener sound effect? One more time. And one more for good measure. Thank you very much. So yeah, we're talking about events today, but our guest today has built her career on planning creative beer festivals all over the country. She's here to teach us how you can plan exciting events that get people off their asses.
Yeah, so you don't need to love beer, you don't need to drink beer, you don't need to care about beer to be into this episode. This episode is about how to throw huge, successful events, and our guest, who's extremely detail-oriented, knows exactly that. So trust us, you want to get out your pen and paper for this one.
What's up, everybody? We're here with Kate Levenstien. She's the founder of Cannonball Productions. They're an events company out of New York City that specializes in beer festivals all over the United States. So, Kate, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I grew up out east in New Jersey and ended up going to school in the best state in America, in Wisconsin, at the University of Wisconsin at Madison. And that's where my love for beer really came through, beer and cheese. And after I graduated, I moved down to Chicago and started working at the Oprah Winfrey Show. I was there until that ended. And sadly...
What did you do with Oprah?
I worked in her booking department. So it was the best team. We got to come up with all the different ideas for different shows and then actually make them happen. So it was a really creative team. So we would say, what would be a really great surprise for Oprah? Like, we'll get the Black Eyed Peas to come up with a song, and then we'd call up will.i.am and see if they'd be into it. So it was hard to move on after that. But luckily, Living Social was on its way up on the rise, and they were growing. I was tapped to run the Midwest market.
For folks that have never heard of Living Social, could you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. In the heyday of Living Social back in 2010, 11, and 12, it was one of the biggest daily deal marketing sites for businesses around the country and around the world. So when I started there, they were based in DC. We were at about, I think, 500 or 600 people, and boomed over a 2-year time frame to 4,000 or 5,000 people.
Wow, that's a big staff.
Yeah. So you really got to see a company grow and figure out what it did well, what it didn't do well. So my job was basically to come up with really cool ideas that local Chicagoans would just love. And we were running at one point about 40 different types of trips. So we took it from nothing. I was alone in that market, and then by the end of it, I had a team of about 65 people helping me to run these amazing trips for tens and hundreds of thousands of people in the city.
Wait, what
Safety
about,
first.
since you hadn't worked in events like this before, what about the job enticed you to leave Oprah? Like, why did you think that your next step should be an event? Great
question. Well, so the show was ending, so it was time for pretty much everybody to move on. But at the same time, I thought almost every show at Oprah was an event in and of itself. There was a very structured timeline of what was going to happen, what preparation we needed to think about before every guest, before every scene and segment. Different props, and really the idea that both of the jobs had in common for me was the concept creation and coming up with what would resonate with a specific audience.
Kate, you spent years working for other people, other companies, and now you're here because you're working for yourself. How did you start to make that transition? I mean, what put all the pieces into place?
So we transitioned from Living Social. We were doing these day trips, and we started thinking about bigger events that we could do. So we were basically asked to throw a beer festival in our market, and thinking about where I would want to go to a beer festival. The one place that hit me was Lincoln Park Zoo, which is downtown. It's this beautiful open space. And so called them up, and we convinced them to throw the very first beer festival at Lincoln Park Zoo. And that was about a month and a half before Living Social decided it was kind of done with the live events division, because they were trying to focus more on the Daily Deal platform. And so I had these ideas after seeing we had 10,000 people in one night, in one session, come through and drink and eat and play, and really this idea of community was driving through me at that point. To get 10,000 people in one space at a time for beer was really exciting to me. So the one thing I thought that was lacking from that event was the idea of food being included. I'm a huge foodie. I love the idea of getting to try a lot of different things. And so the idea of food was really missing in that scenario to me. I had gone out to breakfast one morning at one of the most popular breakfast spots in Chicago, and they had a bacon platter on the menu. So
yum.
My boyfriend and I looked at each other, and we were like, yeah, we need to get that. That's going in our belly. So it was like maple syrup bacon and black pepper bacon and jalapeno bacon.
Basically, the idea light bulb went off over your head when you saw that massive platter of bacon.
Yeah, I was like, well, that's awesome. I want to eat this all the time. And what can we do with this? And the restaurant was so hard to get into. They were only open until 4 p.m. And I approached them about holding dinners there. So we put together a bacon and beer dinner, and they basically created different bacon sample dishes with each of those bacon strips, and then gave you a strip on the side. So it was like, here's the jalapeno bacon strip, and then it's made into, a jalapeno mac and cheese sample dish. And then we paired different craft beers with each of those dishes. So that event, that was the first one within Living Social, and it was so successful that other markets, my counterparts in other cities around the country, started to try and mimic it. And it was successful in almost every city that we went to. So I went back to the higher ups and said, look at all this opportunity is here. We already know it's it's sold really well on our platform through the dinners. Let's do it. And I think within the week, it was within, a couple of days, they let the whole company division go, the whole live events team go. So thankfully, my parents were both entrepreneurs, and they said, you know what you should do is take these companies that want to hire you and bring them on as clients and start your own company and try and put together one of these events that you're so passionate about. Was that
a scary idea to you at first?
Yeah. I was like, you guys are crazy. You don't know how it works. Like, you're ancient. This isn't the 80s anymore. This isn't how it happens. And but they were exactly right. It was super scary.
Do you think the tipping point was where you said, okay, I'm not just, trying this out anymore. I'm actually going to sort of hunker down and make this a business?
There was really no option at that point. We found the name Cannonball. I knew that was going to be the name, and starting a website, and it was just, it all happened really fast.
Let's talk about the very first festival that Cannonball planned, and I want to know specifically what went wrong.
Oh God, so much went wrong. It was more went wrong than went right. We put together, our very first festival was Bacon and Beer, and the Bacon and Beer Classic in Seattle. Okay. So that's when things started to get real too. We just started calling up every Major League Baseball stadium in the country. And two of my colleagues from Living Social ended up joining me. They quit their jobs and came and joined me full time to help run these adventures and festivals. And the vision was to just have one festival, one Bacon and Beer Classic.
Okay.
In Chicago, and we were coming up against a lot of challenges, whether it was that the stadiums had existing sponsors and they weren't interested in bringing in craft beer, or who was going to hold the liquor license. They're already a licensed facility. How was that going to work? And they have an in-house catering company that is an exclusive caterer to that space. How were we going to expect to bring in 50 restaurants to cook for the day? So there were a lot of challenges.
I just want to rewind to understand why for your first event did you decide to go for such a big partner to do it at a baseball stadium?
From the competitive analysis, I knew if we were going to do it, we had to do it big, and we had to make a really bold statement with, this is who we are, we're going to run it in stadiums around the country. So that was part of it. The other part was really this Americana nostalgia that baseball stadiums hold. Football stadiums too, just sports stadiums. You can't get more American than our football and baseball and soccer and now all the stadiums that we work with. The initial idea was this 1920s baseball feel. I wanted everything to be black and white and have old highlight reels playing on the TVs and of that teams, and the idea of this Americana with bacon and craft beer and a more craft version of their foot-long hot dog and their tall boy, beer can. So that was the whole idea. And I also thought that it was one of the best spaces that's probably the most underutilized in cities across the country. Seattle was the very first event. We knew nothing about the city of Seattle, and we were flyering and we were talking to different companies and just trying to figure out, what do people want? What kind of music do people want there?
You said that you guys were flyering, but flyering, I feel like, doesn't fill a baseball stadium. So this was your first event. How did you get all those people there? How did you find them?
It wasn't, so the flyering, I still flyer to this day. We're selling hundreds of thousands of tickets. I still think one of the best ways to get information about people is to see who is interested in the flyer that you have in your hand. And when you say whiskey on the corner, of the Bedford L stop in Williamsburg, New York, in Brooklyn, who is grabbing the flyer out of my hand and what do they look like and what kind of questions are they asking? So it's not, to me, the flyering wasn't about getting the masses there, but it was about talking to the very specific people and seeing who was interested.
So that was market research.
The way that we got the masses there, though, we were working with all of our restaurants and brewery partners, and they were helping get the word out to all of their followers and people who are interested. And then obviously we worked with Amazon out in Seattle. We tried to go the corporate route and just get, through the lunch periods to get people to be talking about our event and flyering in their own offices, telling their friends about it. Word of mouth. If the event is anything that friends want to go to, which all of our events are, they're group or double, coupled events, people want to talk about it and tell their friends and tell their families. So that was by far the best method.
For people that don't have these relationships already with partners, organizations, corporate companies that could potentially push their new initiative, what do you think is the best way to first start those relationships, especially with some of the giants that you're talking about, like Groupon and Amazon? I don't think you can just show up at the offices and ask them to promote your idea.
You really can. It's actually crazy. You can, the best way, people said, how did you get Safeco, on board? What connections did you have in the sports world? I had none. I had no relationships with Amazon. I had no relationships with any of the stadiums that we worked with. And I picked up the phone and called them.
What do you think that you did specifically to get them to hear you and care about you and get that thing going?
Well, I think the event really sold itself. And I think, we can take credit for that, but obviously the words bacon and beer, nobody shrugs off. People are pretty interested in what that looks like. And then when you hold it inside of a really well-known facility, there's some automatic credibility that comes with that. So people were like, wow, there's not a baseball game happening. This is just your event. You guys are renting out the stadium. Let's talk a little bit more. So that's one thing. And I think really the brand, we had a really great website in place. Thankfully, we worked with Wix. I was so lucky to have stumbled upon a commercial. But that is one of the biggest things. If you don't have a website or a brand that resonates with people, that, you know, provides that immediate credibility to people, or that looks fun. You know, at the end of the day, people want to just spend money on things that look fun, that they're going to learn from, that they're going to get to taste things at. So that all had to be conveyed without any imagery. We didn't have any photos. We didn't have any videos. So we were really reliant on existing content. And one of the things that helped so much was the photo gallery that lives within Wix that you can choose photos from. So we were pretty reliant on existing content, since we had never held an event before.
Yeah. Now, I mean, you guys obviously had to invest a lot of money to get this first event off the ground. Do you remember, was there a number of people that had to show up for this to be a success for you?
Yes, there's always a number. The tricky thing with events is that the vast majority of tickets sell in the week or two leading up to the event. So it's very scary. But we had a number. I don't even remember what it was at that point, but probably 3,000, I would say.
3,000 people
had to show
for your
up.
First event.
At least. Maybe it was more. It could have been 4,000. I don't even honestly remember. But
wow.
That first event, you asked a few minutes ago what we did wrong in that first event. And it is a laundry list. I think our event drastically changed, even down to the size of the cups. It changed from a 6-ounce cup to a 4-ounce cup because people were just getting way too intoxicated, and thinking, I didn't think a 2-ounce difference, would really make a huge difference, but it does. And as a result, we wanted our cups to be a really big part of our brand, and they are. They're these great ceramic keepsake mini solo cups.
Wow, I know for me, having a really unique takeaway like that would definitely hook me into coming to your next event. How important do you think hooks are when creating something like this?
The hook is really important, I think. A theme can always help an event, even if it's a conference, and having like a luau theme one night or something. There's something about a theme that people really enjoy.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I mean, themes give everybody something special beyond the event to get excited about. What are 3 other things you think that can make your event really stand out?
A big thing is we don't give it all away up front, and that helps it stand out, I guess, when people are on site. But we kind of, as I said, we have bacon and we have beer and we have games, but we do other things on site, and you don't necessarily want to market all of them. You want to make sure that you think about all different types of people who are going to be there and create little activities that they would enjoy.
Yeah, I love that idea of creating different activities for different people, because everybody wants to have a different experience. You know what I mean? It's not like an assembly line where everybody's coming to experience exactly the same thing. Everybody can sort of craft their own day.
Exactly. And you said craft and like DIY things on site, just little things that people can actually touch and feel, whether it's, we're coming out in 2017, we're going to do like a make your own brine and sauce station. So people love being able to have hands-on, experiences, and then being able to take that home with them and implement it in their everyday life. We call it like creating the FOMO, or those Instagrammable moments. Like, what are people going to remember? They're not going to remember every brewery or every beer they tried. What are they going to take pictures of on site? What are they going to take away from this event and make them come again next year? So we're always thinking about that. And then I think on that same point is setting the expectations. So we don't want to say, 80 restaurants and then there's only 30. Setting the right expectations and exceeding them once people are on site is really important, and I think it's what makes a really great event and what makes people want to come back and experience other types of events that we're producing.
Because your events are offline, what you think are the most essential things to bring to your online presence to keep that sort of circle of communication going from offline to online and the other way around?
I think what resonates with people on our website is the photos. And now we actually have a lot of content. We photos and videos on site, especially at your first event, are crucial. So make sure you get really great imagery from your first experiences. So I think people want to know what it looks like, what it feels like, who's going. So we definitely have galleries, and our Instagram feed is organically flowing through our website. So making sure that there's a lot of imagery. Testimonials are great. People want to know what the event is like, and they want to hear from people who have been, or judges who have been before and want to talk about it. So I think those are some of the biggest things that we take from our events and put them online. Other than that, videos are the best way. I think it encapsulates the event really well. So you understand kind of from beginning to end what you're going to experience. And I think that's merchandise too. I mean, we love people wearing our swag around, and they love it because it says bacon and beer on it. So having really fun merchandise that people can buy on site but can also buy online is really fun for people.
Do you think it's important to use the photos, the videos that your guests are taking? How do you do that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. We repost all the time. We Instagram at people. We comment on their photos because sometimes they take the best pictures. They're candid. They're real. So we will repost them all the time. And usually, like, our team is so busy on site that we don't have time to take pictures. So we're just going through the hashtag, seeing what people have posted, and reposting right from there on site at the event. So that's a big way that we use content on site.
Kate, what do you think are maybe 2 or 3 of the most common mistakes that people make when they're throwing their own events?
Basic thing is signage. I'm sure we've all been to events that have poor signage, and it's just frustrating as an attendee to not know where to go.
Absolutely.
So making sure that you have the right signage.
And the bathroom.
Yeah, where are the bathrooms? Where's the beer? Where are the games? And really, it's not very expensive.
Bacon?
And where is the bacon? Show me the bacon. Making sure you have professionally done signage. I've been to a couple of, events that were supposedly thrown by professionals. I know they were, but they had handwritten signs that said, restrooms with an arrow on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And it was just awful. So at least, type it out, take a few minutes, it costs a couple of cents, just to print a sheet of paper. And I think that's a big thing. I think that's a really big thing. And making sure you have enough bathrooms, and you have enough vendors, and you have enough games. So always thinking about how much and how many you need is really important. And changing, rental companies are used to changing numbers, up until the last day. So it's not ideal, but plan for more than you expect. You'll always have more people there than you think.
What do you think is the number one thing that every event thrower should know not to cut costs with?
I would say security, especially for these large events.
Interesting answer. Okay.
Yeah, I would say security. I mean, that sounds so buttoned up of me, because usually we're like, oh, it'll be fine. But it really helps. It helps registration happen really fast. We do bag checks and ID checks, and
Sure.
And if we only had 2 people out there checking, 10,000 people in at a time, it would take hours to get in. We're really proud of the fact that we get everybody in less than 20 minutes. We'll get 3,500 people, 4,000 people in with bag checks, wanding. They have to walk through, metal detectors sometimes, depending on the venue that we're in. So security is really important, and I guess on another level, really the food and alcohol. I mean, if people are eating and drinking, they're happy. So just make sure you have enough of it, and that it's flowing, it's free flowing, it's happening. People aren't waiting too long for it. Because if they're eating and they're drinking, they're very, very happy people.
All right, and we have to ask, because we will not be fortunate enough to be as close to Oprah as you have been, the guru herself. What do you think is the number one thing you learned from working for Miss Oprah?
How to take a tequila shot. No, I'm just kidding. We did get to do tequila shots a couple of times with Miss Winfrey. No, I think the biggest thing, I think loyalty. Her team has had been there from day one. I mean, almost everybody had been there for 10 plus years, and there was no reason to leave because she treated her team members with the, like gold. And they were, and they in return, were the most loyal people to her. They were really passionate about what she stood for and what she was, putting out in the world. So I think that and hard work obviously comes with loyalty. Everything kind of falls under loyalty. The trustworthiness of people there, the longevity of people's tenure there, the constant thought. I felt like when I worked there, my life became secondary and Oprah's voice was primary, and doing everything I could to maintain that was the priority while I was there. So to be able to instill that in your employees is pretty powerful.
So, yeah. Kate, we want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. You're a wealth of knowledge about throwing events, and you guys do it really well. Really, really well. Bacon and Beer Classic is one of the coolest it's one of the coolest beer festivals I've ever heard of. I would love to be there. If you guys want to come to our side of the pond, we will be there immediately. We'll buy all the tickets.
And all the merchandise.
Sold.
All right, we're set
Sold.
up. We'll see you next week.
Awesome. Done. That's awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for having me on. I can't talk about Bacon and Beer enough, so I really appreciate you seeing the event and what it stands for, and we'll hopefully be over there sooner than you know it.
Yeah,
Sounds
absolutely.
Good. Cheers,
Thanks, guys.
Kate.
Cheers.
All right, guys, for those of you that don't know, Justin is an avid beer lover and probably a self-described connoisseur. Am I correct?
IPA till I die.
Exactly. So, because of this reputation he would like to uphold, I decided to give him a little beer quiz. For those of you that think you know beer, please shout out the answer as well. Let's see who's smarter, you or Justin. Ready, Jess?
I think so.
All right, let's do this thing. What do you think is the ingredient brewers pay the least attention to?
It's definitely not hops, because everybody's obsessed with hops. I think it's water.
You're right!
Boom!
What is the scientific word that means the study of beer and beer making?
What? Pintethology.
Good guess, and that's a no. It's zithology. Were the first professional brewers men or women?
Gotta be women.
Correct.
Girl power.
What are hops?
This
Mr. Connoisseur.
This is just like explaining what gluten is. Hops are a magical ingredient that make everything delicious, and it's a grain. It's a grain called hops.
It's a flowering plant.
It's a flowering plant.
That's correct.
Okay.
Beer can prevent what common painful condition?
Heartache.
Truth. And the answer is kidney stones. What's one thing beer commercials in the U.S. are not allowed to show?
Drunk toddlers.
To be fair, all toddlers seem drunk.
Yes, they do.
But the answer is you can't show people drinking at all.
Really?
Yeah, true fact.
What?
Yeah.
That's real?
Yeah, that's real.
These are all real?
Totally. And last but not least, this is just a fun one for when you're trying to make small talk next time you're at a bar. What is the word for fear of an empty glass?
Just my waking existence. I know that's more than one word. But.
So sad. All right, I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong, but it's senosilicophobia.
Senosilicophobia.
Correct. Fear of an empty glass.
Boom. Thanks for testing me. I think I did okay.
You did okay. I hope everyone at home did a great job with the quiz. If you beat Justin, please shoot us a message. I would love it. Anyway, thanks for playing the game. Whether you won or lost, we've had a blast. All right, that was a pretty comprehensive understanding of how to do huge events, and I think we can safely say that Cannonball Productions has nailed it.
Nailed it.
But for those of us who are just starting out in the event industry, I highly recommend getting out a pen and paper right about now, because it's time for your before, during, and after event checklist.
Here goes. Before the event. 1. As you market your event, be detailed, but don't give it all away. You want people to know what to expect, but keep some surprises for when they actually get there. Number 2. Don't be shy about reaching out to potential partners and asking for help. Oftentimes, local businesses are more interested than you'd think, and they can also bring their own audiences to your event. And number 3, don't forget, signage is important. You need to mark where guests can find the bathrooms and exits, pick up tickets, and of course, hit the bar.
Now, what about during the event? 1, take pictures and videos and tons of them. This is your proof that your event actually happened and how much people loved it. 2, make sure the food and drinks are refilled before necessary. You want your refreshments to seem overflowing. 3, make sure there are always accessible staff for anything your guests need.
And after the event, once everyone has gone home happy, 1, don't overlook the logistics of taking down your event. You want to keep a great relationship with your venue, your service providers, and your staff. 2, collect feedback from your guests. Whether it's a survey you hand on their way out or a follow-up email, see what people had to say and use that information to improve your next event. And 3, post your photos and videos with an original hashtag and ask your guests to share theirs on your social networks. Show people who didn't make it how amazing your event was.
There's a lot that goes into events, as we heard today, but hopefully this checklist will give you a good foundation of how to get started. To all of our small business owners that are going to try out an event coming up, let us know how it goes and if you have any other tips for our community.
Whether you're listening on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or on our Wix website, do us a favor, guys, and subscribe. Leave us some comments, give us a rating. Any way you can help us reach more listeners, we will be forever grateful, and you can make sure you never miss an episode. That's all we got for another episode of Who What Wix. Thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next time.